Ambassador Thelver adjusted his ceremonial sash for the third time, a nervous habit he'd developed over 5 centuries of diplomatic service. Through the observation portal of the Harmonious Accord, he watched the blue-green planet rotate peacefully below Earth, the 517th species to receive first contact from the Galactic Concordance. It should have been routine. Ambassador, we're receiving responses to our greeting transmission. Communications officers in the announced, her crystalline form refracting, the bridge's soft lighting into rainbow patterns across the walls. Thelver straightened, feeling the familiar warmth of anticipation. This was always his favorite part, the moment when a new civilization realized they weren't alone in the universe. 516 times he'd witnessed the wonder, the joy, the inevitable tears of relief that came with learning that peace and prosperity awaited them. Among the stars, excellent. Route the primary governmental response to my station. Zinne's colors flickered, a sign of confusion in her species. Ambassador, which response would you like? We've received 2,847 so far. Thelver's third eyelid blinked involuntarily. I'm sorry, did you say 2,000? 2,847. And increasing. She manipulated her console with practiced efficiency. We have responses from 193 distinct governmental entities claiming primary authority. 1,200 military installations, 847 private corporations, 300 to religious organizations, and Ambassador, someone named Doug from accounting is asking if we're hiring. The ambassador felt his respiratory systems constrict slightly. In 5 centuries, he had never encountered this particular problem. Every species, regardless of their political structure, eventually coalesced around a single unified response to first contact. It was the natural order of things faced with the immensity of the cosmos. Internal divisions always dissolved. Show me the largest governmental entities, he commanded. Regaining his composure, 5 holographic screens materialized before him, each displaying a different human representative. They were all talking simultaneously. United States of America welcomes you and requests exclusive. People's Republic of China, the rightful leading power of Earth, demands. European Union wishes to establish a multilateral framework. Russian Federation warns against any unilateral. United Nations, as the legitimate representative of humanity, insists. Thelver silenced them all with a gesture. His headache, a phantom sensation his species had evolved past millennia ago, was inexplicably returning. Zinde analyzed their political structure. There must be a supreme authority. She worked in silence for several minutes, a form flickering through various hues of perplexity. Ambassador, there isn't one. Earth is divided into 195 sovereign nations, each with independent military capabilities and legal systems. The United Nations has symbolic authority, but no enforcement power. It's complete chaos. Chaos, Thelver repeated slowly, tasting the unfamiliar concept. The Concordance had encountered fractured civilizations before species in the midst of unification, planets recovering from civil wars. But those situations were temporary, transitional states. This seemed to be humanity's normal operating condition. Recommend we follow Protocol 7B. suggested Commander Kresh, the ship's military liaison. His scaled hide rippled with barely contained irritation. Contact each major power individually until we identify the dominant faction. Protocol 7B. Felver mused. When was that last used? Approximately 3,000 years ago. Sir, it took 4 months. Very well. Begin diplomatic. Ambassador. Zinni interrupted, her colors flashing alarm red. The humans are launching spacecraft toward our position. Every eye on the bridge turned to the tactical display. 12 primitive chemical propulsion craft were indeed ascending from the planet's surface, their trajectories converging on the harmonious accord. Are they attacking us? Kresh demanded, moving toward the defense console. No, sir, Tactical Officer Resh replied, his tentacles dancing across multiple screens. At least. I don't think so. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. It appears to be music. The bridge speakers crackled to life with a cacophony of sound trumpets, drums, and what could only be described as organized noise. Through it all, human voices sang in dozens of different languages. They're celebrating. Zin said, wonder creeping into her voice. Each nation sent a spacecraft to welcome us. They're competing to be first. Thelva watched as the 12 craft jockeyed for position, occasionally firing small maneuvering thrusters to edge ahead of competitors. One craft, emblazoned with red, white, and blue stripes, actually bumped another bearing a red flag with yellow stars. Both vessels corrected their courses and continued racing. This is unprecedented. Thelva murmured. Should we be concerned? Kresh asked. Before the ambassador could respond, a new alert chimed. Zinna's colors went completely white, the crystalline equivalent of shocked speechlessness. What now? Thelva asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. It's coming from inside our own communication network. That's impossible. Our systems are encrypted with quantum. They hacked us, sir. She pulled up the transmission. A young human face appeared on screen, grinning widely. The being appeared to be barely into maturity, wearing what analysis suggested was sleeping attire and sitting in a small, cluttered room. Hey, can you guys hear me? The human said excitedly. This is so cool. I'm Tinth, the code master for 7. By the way, I just wanted to say welcome to Earth. Also, your firewall was pretty good. But you should really patch that vulnerability in your tertiary encryption layer. I left some notes in your system about it. Anyway, gotta go, my mom's calling me for dinner. Peace. The transmission ended. The bridge was silent save for the ambient hum of the ship's systems. A juvenile, Thelva said quietly, broke into our communication network to give us technical advice and to welcome us. Zindi added helpfully, I want a full security review. Kresh growled, if their children can breach our defenses. Sir, incoming transmission. Zindi interrupted. It's from the United Nations. They're proposing we land in a city called Geneva for a formal welcome ceremony. Thelva exhaled slowly. Perhaps this would be the opportunity to establish proper diplomatic protocols. Inform them we accept, and Zindi, make sure our security systems are patched. Geneva was beautiful, in a chaotic sort of way. Thelva had attended welcome ceremonies on hundreds of world's grand affairs, with careful choreography, symbolic gestures, and respectful silence punctuated by ceremonial music. This was none of those things. Thousands of humans crowded around the landing site, held back by thin barriers and armed security forces. They weren't silent, they were screaming, cheering, holding up signs with bizarre pictographic messages. Some waved flags, others held up glowing devices that Thelva's analysis suite identified as personal communication tools. All pointed at his delegation. "They're recording us," Zinda said, her form flickering nervously, "broadcasting our arrival to billions of humans, simultaneously through something called social media. Is that a security concern?" Kresh asked, his hand near his sidearm. "I don't think so. They're mostly making jokes about your scales." The commander's hide rippled with indignation, but before he could respond, a delegation of humans approached. They were dressed in formal attire, walking with the practiced dignity of seasoned diplomats. Finally, Thelva thought, someone who understood proper protocol. The lead humaner, distinguished older gentleman with silver hair, extended his hand toward Thelva. The ambassador had studied human customs and recognized this as their greeting ritual. He reached out to clasp it. The human's grip was firm, perhaps too firm. "Ambassador Thelva, on behalf of the United Nations, I welcome you to Earth. I am Secretary General Morrison." "The honor is ours, Secretary General. We come in peace and friendship as representatives of the Galactic Concordance." A flash of light interrupted him. Then another, and another. Thelva's optical sensors were overwhelmed by the barrage of what his suit identified as chemical ignition photographic equipment. "Apologies," Morrison said smoothly, not appearing apologetic at all. "The press is quite excited. This is, after all, the biggest story in human history." "Press?" Thelva asked weakly. "Independent journalists. Freedom of information is a core human value." The ambassador filed the concerning phrase away for later analysis. "Perhaps we could move to a more private setting for the formal ceremony?" Of course. Morrison gestured toward a grand building behind them. "We've prepared the assembly hall, though I should mention the ceremony will be broadcast globally. Transparency, you understand." Thelva was beginning to understand that he understood nothing about humans. The assembly hall was magnificent, at least. Thousands of humans in formal dress filled tiered seating, while his delegation was escorted to a central platform. Flags of hundreds of nations hung from the ceiling, a stark reminder of Earth's political fragmentation. "We've prepared a traditional Earth ceremony to honor this moment," Morrison announced to the crowd. "To symbolize our commitment to peace, we present arms." Alarms immediately shrieked in Thelva's suit. His security detail moved into defensive positions as 200 human soldiers marched into the hall, each carrying what scanners identified as kinetic projectile weapons. "They're armed," Kresh hissed, reaching for his weapon. "Wait," Thelva commanded, his analytical mind working frantically. The humans weren't pointing their weapons, they were holding them in specific formal positions. And Morrison was smiling, apparently confused by the Concordance delegation's reaction. "Is something wrong?" the Secretary General asked. "Your soldiers," Thelva said carefully, are carrying weapons into a peace ceremony. Morrison's confusion deepened. Yes, it's a military honor guard. Presenting arms is one of our highest ceremonial tributes. Were we not supposed to? Understanding dawned on his face. You don't have honor guards in the Concordance. We have abolished military ceremonies. Weapons are tools of violence, not honor. An uncomfortable silence spread through the hall. Finally, Morrison cleared his throat. Well, this is awkward. Perhaps we could move past this cultural misunderstanding and proceed to the treaty discussion. Thelva wanted nothing more than to return to his ship, but 5 centuries of diplomatic training kept him composed. Yes, that would be acceptable. As the honor guard retreated, though they kept their weapons, Thelva noted with discomfort. Morrison pulled up a holographic display. We've reviewed the preliminary treaty outline you transmitted. Our legal experts have some questions. Legal experts? Oh yes. We assembled teams from every major nation. Approximately 4,000 lawyers have been analyzing the document. For the past 6 hours, 4,000 lawyers analyzing. A treaty designed to be simple and straightforward. Thelva's headache was definitely back. Their primary concern, Morrison continued, oblivious to the ambassador's distress, is Clause 7, subsection 3, regarding resource rights. The wording appears to give the Concordance authority over all subterranean materials. We'd like to propose an amendment. The treaty is standard across all member species. Thelva explained patiently. It has been refined over thousands of years to ensure fairness, and I'm sure it has. Morrison interrupted with perfect politeness. But you see, Earth has a long legal tradition. We've found that every document can be improved. In fact, we've prepared a 300-page analysis of potential modifications. Before Thelva could respond, his communications implant chimed urgently. Zinne's voice, tight with stress, spoke directly into his mind. Ambassador, we have a situation. You need to see this immediately. I'm in the middle of, sir. It's about the probe we sent to Earth 12 years ago. That probe had been a standard reconnaissance device, designed to study Earth's development from orbit without interference. It had stopped transmitting years ago, assumed destroyed in a micrometeorite collision. What about it? The humans have it. And, sir, they've reverse-engineered the technology. Thelva's his circulatory fluid ran cold. That's not possible. Our technology is millennia ahead of apparently not impossible enough. They're already manufacturing their own faster-than-light communication systems based on our designs. 3 different nations claim to have working prototypes. The ambassador looked at Morrison, who was still smiling politely, still waiting for a response to his treaty amendments. Behind that diplomatic facade, what else were these humans hiding? Secretary General, Thelva said slowly, did your species recover a Concordance probe approximately 11 years ago? Morrison's smile never wavered, but something shifted in his eyes. We may have retrieved an unidentified object from orbit. For safety purposes, of course. And did you study it? Study is such a strong word. We examined it carefully, with great respect for interstellar property rights. Did you reverse engineer our technology? The silence that followed was answer enough. Finally, Morrison shrugged, a gesture Thelva's database identified as indicating casual dismissal. Ambassador, you left it in our orbit. Finders keepers is a well-established principle of Earth maritime law. We simply applied it to space law. You applied maritime law to space? Well, we had to apply something. We didn't have any space law yet. Morrison's expression turned serious. Look, Ambassador, we mean no disrespect, but humans are curious by nature. You give us a puzzle, we solve it. You leave us technology, we learn from it. That's just what we do. Thelva felt the foundations of his understanding crumbling. 516 species had welcomed the Concordance with open arms, eager to learn, grateful for guidance. Not one had stolen technology and claimed finders keepers as a legal justification. I see, he said, because he had to say something. Perhaps we should revisit the treaty negotiations at a later time, when both our peoples have had more time to understand each other's customs. Excellent idea. Morrison agreed. Shall we schedule another meeting? Next week, perhaps. Next week, Thelva echoed numbly. As his delegation retreated to their shuttle. Kresh leaned close. This species is trouble, Ambassador. I recommend we file a Level 5 concern report with the Galactic Council. Thelva watched the crowd, still cheering, still recording, still celebrating what they clearly thought was humanity's grand entrance onto the galactic stage. But that wasn't what this was. This was something else entirely. No, he said quietly, not Level 5. Sir, file a Level 1 catastrophic threat report. Because, Commander, I don't think we're witnessing first contact. Then what are we witnessing? Thelva looked back at the assembly hall, where thousands of humans were already analyzing every moment of their interaction, looking for advantages, finding loopholes, planning their next moves. An invasion, he said. We just don't realize it yet because they're invading with lawyers instead of warships. As the shuttle lifted off, Thelva's implant chimed again. This time, it was a message from an unknown source, broadcast on civilian frequencies that somehow bypassed all their security. The message was simple. Thanks for stopping by. We've got so many questions. Also, we'd like to discuss franchise opportunities for Concordance technology. Several corporations are interested. Contact us at your earliest convenience. P.S. Your ship's design is awesome. We're already 3D printing scale models. Hope that's okay. Humanity, Thelva realized with growing dread, hadn't been waiting to be discovered. They'd been waiting for customers. 3 weeks after first contact, Ambassador Thelva stood before the Concordance High Council, trying to explain why humanity still hadn't signed the integration treaty. The council chamber, a vast spherical room, where representatives from 516 species floated in zero gravity, hummed with impatient whispers. Ambassador, Councillor Veshtar intoned, her gaseous form swirling with agitated colors. You have successfully integrated 83 species during your career. What makes these humans so difficult? Thelva considered his words carefully. Councillors, every species we've encountered has followed predictable patterns. They recognize our technological superiority, acknowledge the benefits of membership, and accept our guidance. Humans do none of these things. Explain, commanded Counselor Drax. A being of pure crystallized thought, they question everything. When we presented the Standard Integration Treaty, a document perfected over millennia, they subjected it to analysis by 4,000 legal experts. Veshtar's colors flickered with amusement. And what did these primitive legal minds discover? 47 loopholes, 17 potential treaty violations, 23 ambiguous clauses, and 12 sections they claim are legally unenforceable under any rational interpretation of interstellar law. Thelva paused. They also noted 3 spelling errors. The chamber fell silent. "That's impossible," Drax finally said. "The treaty has been reviewed by our finest legal scholars across 500 species. Nevertheless, they found issues. And counselors, that's not the worst part." Thelva pulled up a holographic display. "They've counter-proposed their own treaty. It's 847 pages long and includes provisions for intellectual property rights, competitive market access, and something called most favored nations status." "Do they not understand?" Veshtar asked, her form darkening. "This is not a negotiation. Integration into the concordance is a privilege, not a business arrangement. I explained that." "Counselor," their chief negotiator, a woman named Sarah Chen, laughed and said, "Everything's a business arrangement if you're creative enough." Counselor Murdoch, who had remained silent until now, leaned forward. The ancient being's voice rumbled like continental plates grinding. "Ambassador, perhaps we have been too gentle. Present them with our standard ultimatum. Integrate peacefully or face economic isolation." "I did, Counselor, and they've already established independent trade relationships with 17 non-concordance species. Apparently, several fringe civilizations are quite interested in humanity's innovative business models." The council erupted into chaos, being shouted in hundreds of languages, creating a cacophony that the translation matrix struggled to process. Finally, Drax's mental voice cut through the noise like a blade. "Silence." The command reverberated through every mind present. "Ambassador Thelva, return to Earth. Make them understand. Use whatever means necessary. But get that treaty signed." Thelva bowed, though his hearts were heavy. He had a terrible feeling that whatever means necessary wouldn't be nearly enough. The formal treaty presentation was held at a neutral location, the International Space Station, humanity's orbital outpost. Thelva had to admit, humans had accomplished something remarkable by building it with their primitive technology. It was also, he noted with resignation, covered in corporate logos, sponsorship deals. Explained Chen, who met him at the airlock. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a smile that never quite reached them. Coca-Cola paid for the new habitat module. Amazon funded the communication ray. It's how we afford things. You monetized your space station, Thelva said flatly. "We monetize everything, Ambassador. You'll learn." The conference room was crowded. Representatives from Earth's major nations sat alongside corporate executives, military officials, and bizarrely several individuals Chen introduced as influencers who were live streaming the event. "To billions of humans. Shall we begin?" Thelva said, trying to regain control of the situation. The integration treaty I'm presenting today represents the Concordance's final offer. It is non-negotiable. Chen smiled. Everything's negotiable, Ambassador. But please, continue. Felver pulled up the holographic treaty. Article 1. All member species must maintain peaceful relations with other Concordance members. Warfare, economic sabotage, and hostile competition are strictly forbidden. A hand shot up. It belonged to a human male wearing a military uniform decorated with an alarming number of medals. General Hayes, United States Marine Corps, the man said. Quick question. Does hostile competition include sports? Sports. Felver blinked. You know, competitive athletics. Football, basketball, the Olympics. I suppose not. Why would? Great. What about economic competition? Stock markets, corporate rivalry, that sort of thing. Economic competition is specifically mentioned as hostile, but you just said competition isn't forbidden if it's sports. So where's the line? Is poker hostile competition? Chess? Business? Felver felt his headache returning. The distinction is obvious. Sports are recreational. Business affects resource distribution. So does sports. Interjected a woman introduced as a corporate executive. The sports industry on Earth generates trillions in revenue. It definitely affects resource distribution. Then perhaps we need to clarify. I'd recommend forming a subcommittee, Chen said smoothly. Legal, economic, and recreational experts should hash out the details. Shall we move on? Felver realized, with mounting horror, that this was their strategy. Every clause would be questioned, every definition challenged, every word subjected to debate. The simple treaty would become a labyrinth of subclauses and amendments. Article 2. He continued, his voice strained. All member species must disarm their weapons of mass destruction. This includes nuclear, biological, chemical, and kinetic weapons capable of planetary-scale damage. The room erupted in laughter. Felver waited for it to subside. It didn't. You cannot be serious, he finally said. General Hayes wiped tears from his eyes. Oh, we're not laughing at you, Ambassador. We're laughing at the idea. Nuclear disarmament has been a fantasy on Earth for a century. You really think we're going to give up our deterrence just because you asked nicely? It is not a request. It is a requirement for membership. Then I guess we're not joining, said a Chinese representative flatly. Yeah, hard pass, agreed a Russian official. The European Union also declines, added another voice. Felver felt panic rising. You don't understand. These weapons are dangerous, primitive, obsolete. If they're obsolete, why do you care if we keep them? Chen asked. Because Felver stopped. He realized there was no good answer. If he admitted the weapons were actually dangerous, humans would never surrender them. If he insisted they were harmless, humans would ask why disarmament mattered. Look, Ambassador, Chen said, her voice softening slightly. Let's be honest. You want us to disarm because it makes us easier to control. But here's the thing. Humans don't like being controlled. We've fought wars over it. We've died for it. Independence is quite literally our defining characteristic. The Concordance doesn't seek to control, really. Article 7 establishes Concordance authority over our legal system. Article 12 gives you veto power over our resource extraction. Article 20 requires us to submit technological developments for approval. Chen leaned forward. Ambassador, this treaty doesn't make us members. It makes us subjects. It makes you protected. Thelva countered. There are hostile forces in the galaxy. Without concordance oversight, we'll deal with them ourselves. Hayes interrupted. We've gotten pretty good at dealing with hostile forces. You are not equipped, Ambassador. Chen's voice was steel wrapped in silk. Let me tell you a story about Earth. 500 years ago, European powers tried to colonize the Americas. They had superior technology, stronger weapons, and absolute confidence in their right to rule. Do you know what happened? I'm not familiar with human history. The colonies rebelled. They fought back, and they won. She smiled. We've been fighting colonial powers for centuries, Ambassador. We're really good at it. The implicit threat hung in the air like smoke. Thelva changed tactics. Very well. Let's discuss Article 5, Technology Sharing Protocols. The concordance will provide advanced technology to humanity, allowing you to leapfrog centuries of development. We'll need full documentation. Interrupted a woman introduced as Dr. Yuki Tanaka, head of something called MIT's Technology Transfer Office. Blueprints, source code, theoretical frameworks, everything. That's quite comprehensive. Oh, and we'll want to establish licensing agreements. Any technology we develop based on your designs should have clear IP ownership structures. Thelva's translator struggled with several of those terms. IP ownership, intellectual property, patents, copyrights, trade secrets. Dr. Tanaka looked at him with something resembling pity. You do have concepts of intellectual property, don't you? The concordance believes knowledge should be shared freely for the benefit of all. So, no patents. Interesting. Dr. Tanaka made notes on her tablet. That's going to make things complicated. See, on Earth, we protect innovations. If we develop something new using your technology as a foundation, we own that development. And if we own it, we can sell it. Sell concordance technology. Thelva felt faint. Sell our improvements to your technology. Chen corrected. Completely legal under every free market principle. But the treaty specifically states, you'll share technology with us. It says nothing about what we do with our derivative works. Chen's smile was shark-like. You really should have had better lawyers review this. Before Thelva could respond, his communication implant chimed urgently. Zinna's voice was panicked. Ambassador, emergency. You need to see this now. I'm in the middle of negotiations. Sir, it's about the technology sharing we've already done. Thelva's three stomachs turned to ice. What about it? You know those basic replicator designs we gave them as a gesture of goodwill? To help with food production. Yes, standard first contact gift. What about them? They've weaponized them. The word hung in Thelva's mind like a curse. Explain. A corporation called Lockheed Martin has modified the replicators to manufacture military-grade explosives. Another group called DARPA has created a version that produces biological agents. And Ambassador, they've filed patents on all of it. Thelva looked at the humans across the table. They were all watching him with expressions ranging from innocent curiosity to barely concealed amusement. "You weaponized food replicators," he said slowly, "in our defense." General Hayes said cheerfully, "You didn't specifically say we couldn't. Why would I need to say that? They're designed for food production. And food is just organic compounds ranged in specific patterns. Same principle works for other organic compounds, including explosives." Hayes shrugged. "Basic chemistry." Dr. Tanaka raised her hand. "Also, we've improved the efficiency by about 400%. You're welcome to license our improvements if you'd like. Very reasonable rates." Thelva stood abruptly, his legs barely supporting him. "This meeting is over. The Concordance will reconvene when humanity is prepared to negotiate in good faith." "We are negotiating in good faith," Chen said, standing as well. "You're just not used to negotiating with equals." "Equals?" The word burst from Thelva before he could stop it. "You are centuries behind us technologically. Your planet is divided into warring factions. You have no unified government, no galactic presence. No, we have something better." Chen interrupted quietly. "We have 8 billion humans who have spent their entire history learning to compete, adapt, and survive. You want to integrate us into your peaceful, ordered, controllable civilization?" She shook her head. "Ambassador, peace and order are wonderful things, but they make you soft. They make you predictable." She gestured to the viewport, where Earth rotated below them, a blue marble of chaos and potential. "You've spent thousands of years perfecting your system, making it efficient, eliminating variables. We've spent thousands of years thriving in chaos. You know what happens when a perfect system meets an adaptable one?" Thelva didn't answer. "The adaptable one wins. Every single time. Back aboard the harmonious accord." Thelva called an emergency meeting with his senior staff. "Options?" he demanded without preamble. Kresh, his security chief, spoke first. "Military intervention is impossible. Our fleet is designed for deterrence, not warfare. And based on their rate of technological adaptation, any conflict would be," he hesitated, "a disaster." Zinda finished. "Sir, they've already hacked 3 more of our systems. Low-level breaches, but the frequency is increasing. And we've intercepted chatter suggesting they're planning to steal one of our shuttles." "Steal?" Thelva's headache had evolved into a full-blown migraine. "For what purpose?" "Reverse engineering, presumably." One intercepted message specifically mentioned comparing the FTL drive to our prototypes. "They have FTL prototypes?" "Apparently. 3 different nations are racing to develop them. Current estimates suggest they'll achieve faster-than-light travel within 5 years." 5 years. Thelva repeated numbly. It had taken the Concordance to centuries to develop FTL technology. "How?" "They're not inventing from scratch," explained Thelva as science officer. "A blob-like being named Gorsh. They're stealing our work, studying our ships, and filling gaps with their own innovations. It's actually quite clever. Unethical, but clever. And the patents," Zindi added. "Sir, this is where it gets worse. Several human corporations have already filed patent claims with non-concordance civilizations. They're establishing legal ownership of technologies we invented. That's theft. According to concordance law, yes. According to 17 other civilizations' legal codes, it's legitimate business practice. Zin's colors flickered apologetically. Humans have been very busy making friends with our less cooperative neighbors. Thelva collapsed into his chair. They're building an alternative trade network. More than that, Gorsh said. They're selling our technology modified, improved, and patented to species who've been waiting for alternatives to concordance monopolies. Several of our client species are already switching suppliers. In 3 weeks. Thelva couldn't believe it. They've disrupted our economic system in 3 weeks. They're very motivated, Kresh observed dryly, and apparently very good at this. Thelva stood and walked to the viewport, staring at Earth. Somewhere down there, 8 billion humans were scheming, innovating, competing. They turned first contact into a business opportunity. They transformed peaceful integration into hostile takeover without firing a single shot. What do we do? He asked quietly. No one answered immediately. Finally, Zin spoke. Sir, I recommend we request the Concordance Council authorize a full economic embargo. Cut Earth off completely. No trade, no technology, no contact. That didn't work with the Zelna Collective. Kresh pointed out. They just developed their own alternatives. The Zelna took 2 centuries to achieve independence. How long do you think humans will take? Another silence. 5 years, Gorsh said. Maximum. Then they'll have FTL, replication technology, and probably improvements we haven't thought of yet. And they'll sell it all to anyone willing to buy. Thelva turned back to his staff. Send a message to the council. Tell them we need emergency authorization to proceed to Phase 3 integration protocols. Zin's colors paled. Sir, Phase 3 has never been used. It's only theoretical. Tell them, Thelva repeated firmly, that we are facing an existential threat to concordance stability. Not from weapons, not from warfare. He looked at each of them in turn. From economics, as his staff scrambled to comply. Thelva pulled up the latest intelligence reports. Somewhere in Shanghai, a corporation was mass-producing modified concordance replicators. In Silicon Valley, programmers were cracking concordance encryption. In Moscow, engineers were testing an FTL prototype. And in every human city, on every continent, people were celebrating. They'd met aliens, and instead of bowing in awe, they'd seen opportunity. The Concordance had spent millennia building a perfect civilization, peaceful, ordered, controlled. Humanity was about to burn it down and sell the ashes, and they'd probably patent the process.